let's face it, this is an emotional thing that everyone's going through, whether it's divorce without kids or it's divorce with kids, and depending on their age, but it's emotions. It's driven by emotions. So I think that using somebody like a therapist as an intermediary can help the parents figure out how to communicate, how to make decisions together, and just how to have a co-parenting relationship. Because so one thing that I learned a long time ago, and it always stuck with me, is that just because the parents are no longer married or the parents are no longer together doesn't mean that there's no longer a relationship. There's still a relationship, right? It's just a different type of relationship. I'm not married to my ex-husband anymore. We're not in love anymore. We don't live together anymore, but we still have a relationship of some sorts. And it's up to us to figure out how's that relationship going to look, which ultimately then is what my kids are seeing. So therapy, I think, is a great tool. The other thing I mentioned is a parenting coordinator. And a parenting coordinator is, again, it's an intermediary. I don't want to see it's like a mediator, but it's like a middle person to help the parents figure out how to communicate, help them make decisions together. I don't want to get too technical. There's Florida statutes that dictate what the parenting coordinator can do or can't do. But the other thing about a parenting coordinator or a PC is it doesn't have to be a therapist. I have colleagues that are lawyers that they don't do much lawyering, but one of the things that they do a lot is they act as a parenting coordinator, and they have sessions with the parents, and they can say, today I want to see just mom and the child, or today I want to see just the parents. So these are really good tools. And it's hopefully a way to keep you away from the lawyers and the judges. And obviously with an issue like Gabriella had asked about, introducing the kids to somebody new, the other partner or the other spouse, these are ways that, you can kind of work through that. Because again, in the court system, you're not really going to be getting those questions answered for you. So I have a question. The father of my child is a narcissist and communication doesn't work at all. What would be the best way to proceed in this kind of situation? Yeah, those are tough situations, and we see a lot of that. I can think of at least 3-4 cases I have right now that I'm working on in litigation where one parent is a narcissist or has narcissistic tendencies. So there's a lot of literature and information on how to deal with a narcissist, and more specifically, how to deal with a narcissist in a co-parenting relationship. And again, I think that if communication doesn't work, then you have to go into these tools of the application so that everything is documented. Because even if that narcissistic or the other parent, that's the problem parent, I'll call it, it's usually, someone that's argumentative or a bully, manipulative, whatever the situation may be, even if that other parent isn't engaging in communication or cooperating, by documenting what is going on, just your efforts as the healthy parent, that may be going a long way if you have to go into court or you have to deal with an attorney and dealing with child custody issues or decision-making issues. You want to show the trend or the pattern that I'm trying to share information. I'm trying to ask questions. I'm available. We're trying to work out schedules, whatever the situation is, and let the pattern be shown that this other parent, the unhealthy parent, the problem parent, is not communicating at all, or they're communicating in a really uncivil, unhealthy way. And usually those are the parents that you'll see crazy allegations, or just they'll manipulate the situation. There's lies, there's name calling, there's threats. That has to be documented. And then the other thing is kind of falling back again on that, using a parenting coordinator or someone like a middleman, a middle person to help work through those issues. If it's really bad, and some of these cases are, especially when you have that kind of unhealthy parent in the picture, you may not have a choice but to contact your attorney and then talk about or discuss with your attorney, you know, what are the options? Here's what's happening and what can I do? And like we talked about with timeshare issues or custody issues in family court, it's always modifiable. You can always go into court and say, hey, there's been a change in circumstances. We need to get this parenting plan modified because of X, Y, and Z. And if there's an unhealthy parent, you know, who knows what those facts are going to look like, but that might be grounds for some kind of modification. Any other questions that I can answer specifically about? These are some really good questions, actually. I had a couple. Let's see, I do have another question. Me and my ex have shared custody, but we can't agree on anything. Which school our child should go to, holidays. Okay, so that's a situation where, right, so you have a shared parental responsibility. So maybe you have shared custody, right? So you're sharing time with the kids, and maybe it's not so much the schedule that's a problem, but you're just not able to make decisions together. And that is the whole basis of, at least in Florida, where I practice, shared parental responsibility. I wanted to just share on the screen an example of, this is not my specific parenting plan. My parenting plans are very detailed, and they could be as detailed as we need, sometimes a little bit micromanaging, and sometimes they could be more boilerplate or a little bit more relaxed depending on the situation. But I wanted to just share what a standard parenting plan looks like in Florida. Or at least read it out to you. Let me just show you. So I'm going to share the screen. Can I share? So if you could see that, where it says parental responsibility and decision making. There's other forms of parental responsibility in Florida. But I want to focus today on shared parental, which what I talked about at the very beginning of the session is you're making decisions together. And you can see right here, the standard boilerplate language, this is basically developed by Florida legislature, is that it is in the best interest of the children that the parents confer and jointly make all major decisions affecting the welfare of the children. Major decisions include, but are not limited to, decisions about the children's education, healthcare, and other responsibilities unique to this family. So there's no finite list of what those major decisions might be, but usually things like education and healthcare are the popular ones. Some other issues that come up are like extracurricular activities, things like that. So to answer that question, if you have shared parental, you're supposed to make these decisions together. And in this question, it was about the school. So if you can't work it out, if you can't figure it out, the worst thing you could do as a parent is just decide, well, I'm just going to make the decision on my own. I'm going to unilaterally just figure it out, do it, and tough whatever the other parent says or thinks. That's going to probably create a war, or at least not be promoting a good, healthy co-parenting relationship. If you really can't figure it out and it's not something that you can get done with the use of a therapist or a parenting coordinator or some kind of, help from a middle man or middle person, the end game there is going to be talking to your attorney and having to file a motion with the court to go in and say, Judge, we have to make this decision together, but we're at an impasse. And an impasse is just, we can't figure it out. We don't have an agreement. And what the judge will do is not say, okay, well, here's what I'm going to decide. The judge will not make that decision on where your kid should go to school. How would the judge know where your kid should go to school? These judges see thousands of cases, within months. So what the judge is going to do, though, is say, I'm giving mom the final decision. I'm giving mom the final say, or I'm giving dad the final say. Whatever dad says, that's what it's going to be. And tough what the other parent thinks. If you guys can't figure it out, I'm going to give the one parent the final or ultimate decision-making authority on that issue. That's how that would work. It definitely would make sense, I think, to see a therapist, or like I said, a PC, to try to help work that out. That would not, just because you can't reach an agreement on something like that, wouldn't necessarily be grounds for a complete modification of the timeshare schedule, because it doesn't sound like there's a problem with the parent as a whole, so that there's a need to really change up a schedule. But if you're having a difficulty in working out how to make certain decisions, it might end up being in front of the judge. You're welcome. Any other questions? I know it's almost 1 o'clock already. It kind of went by really fast. And see if I have any other. So those were some of the main tips that I wanted to pass along for today's first session. Was, some of these communication apps and how important communication is if you're trying to co-parent. And again, just keeping it documented and in writing if it's one of those harder co-parenting relationships. And then the other is, besides those apps, some of these other tools in terms of trying to work out your differences. So we're going to be doing more of these live Zoom sessions that we'll continue to record, and we'll share them. But we're going to focus on other things next time. There's so many things we could be focusing on. We've got financial issues, alimony, distribution of assets, liabilities. And I do want to do another session on child custody or timeshare issues or parenting plan issues, more geared toward if you do need to make modifications, and sometimes some of those harder cases that involve the real litigation work. But I felt like the first session should really be focused on co-parenting, and I hope that whoever's watching, I wish you the best in your co-parenting relationship. I hope that you can find peace in that. And thank you all so much for joining. Any final questions? You're welcome. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see you next time.